So we have some time for Q&A, but before we do that, and this is out of step with Jessica's agenda, Yvonne? Tanya? Andrea? Yes, Andrea? And on my left, sort of invisible at the moment, is Nadette Tajakote. With my invisible partner, these ladies worked with me to make up the working group for AVOHN, and I am forever indebted. And the other part of this is that all of the 4 women in front of you are Métis strong. Yes. So, if people have questions, yeah, you may want to stay and help do some answering if questions are off to you. Yes, yes, don't shake your head. Did you think I'd let you get off that easy? No. They are all yours. Scott?
So, I know this is the first step in a larger project. I'm just wondering if you can describe for me. I know I can find that information from the folks that are sitting behind me, but I just thought I would ask if you could describe for me what some of the next steps look like beyond this piece of
The research part. The next steps have already started, which are focus or meetings. So 1 month we have a meeting with Aboriginal organizations only, so that we can get together and work things out within ourselves. And when I say organizations, I also include our community member, Aboriginal community members in that, and where we can get stronger and get to know each other, and our community members can take part in that. One of our members in our first meeting is Annie McCaskey. Wasn't aware I was going to make her stand up either. She was one of our first community members that came and worked with us. After our first meeting, we have wider community meeting with both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal meetings, and our lovely Christine is part of that group, as well as Janelle has come, and Franklin, and Roxana, and we hope that continues to grow. And the third meeting is for all stakeholders, where we want our funders and the city to come, and other government members, as well as both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal committees or communities. Okay? And we will continue that process and build those linkages. And Jessica is our chief whip. Jessica Daniels, and I'm sorry I didn't have her up here, is our AVOHN housing coordinator, and she drives us all very nicely.
Do I? Okay.
Yes, I do. Anyone else? Christine, sorry. Yes,
I have a question for Linda. On your presentation, you identified the short-term. Should I stand because I can't? I'm very short, so. You identified short-term, mid-term, and long-term recommendations in this report. And I was just wondering, is the short-term mean that's the most immediate thing that we have to do, or does that indicate that within the identified strategy, because I see racism as a long process, right? Eliminating discrimination or racism is a long process. So I was just wondering, in my mind, when we indicate that as a short-term recommendation, does it indicate immediacy or does it indicate length of time? Like, what does it?
No, nothing like that, you know, and I struggled with that same question. So I organized them as short-term, mid-term, and long-term. Any one of them can be started. They are all permanent. Short-term means that it will take the least amount of work or you know, effort to actually start on it. Mid-term is the amount of energy it's going to take in order to do it, and long-term is like you're talking 10-year plans and some of the more structural stuff. That's how I was organizing it. All of them would be permanent, and it's just, those are the ones that you probably see the quickest results from, or start to actually show, you know, in the community that something's happening and whatnot, or that could have the most immediate effect, okay, with the least amount of effort. You know, that's how that was. Is there another question?
I'm interested in what you mean by funding strategy to support long-term housing plan. Like,
What was that?
the funding strategy to support long-term housing plan? Like, can you just elaborate more on what that means?
I would kind of just, that's the 10-year plan,
Okay,
so.
that's the 10-year plan.
What my sense is, and I'm probably wrong because I only had a month to do the literature review, and I really wasn't focusing on your history and stuff like that, but I'm guessing that you're operating the same as every other area in Canada, and that is you find out where some funding is, you get it, and then you find out where another bunch is, and you know, like you're just kind of ad hocing it. And so I'm saying that's not the way to go. It's trying to have a full 10-year strategy in place, and some of the, in your report, you'll find that some of the cities are actually moving to that model in order to actually put housing in place. The real problem that you have in Red Deer, and I would probably suspect it's going to be quite significant here, and that is in urban centers, the populations are doubling, tripling, right? The pooling is happening here. Alberta is the only province that has more people, more Aboriginal people migrating into the province and less out. And so your cities are really conglomerations of a multitude of nations and whatnot, and they're, you know, doubling, tripling. Aboriginal people are being born in cities now, okay? They're not all coming from reserves. It's not that sort of a scenario anymore. They're urban people. So those populations are doubling, tripling. Our numbers have not receded whatsoever. In the 10-year plan, what I'm talking about, that's extremely important, and I found and you'll see it in the literature review, over and over again, like the city of Vancouver put a plan together, and they had a whole bunch of houses and units that they were building. By the time the houses were built, they would already be behind. And if you don't look long range at what that population is going to be, then the best you're going to do is maybe meet the needs of tomorrow, and you're already going to be in trouble again. So it has to be long range. This population is very different. It's the only population that has the dynamics that are extremely, the characteristics of our population is it's young. Red Deer, I think, has got a median age of about 35 or something, and ours is like 10 years younger. And that's high, actually, for some of the Aboriginal populations. So it'll probably start even lowering, and it means that you're gonna have large family units. We also have a problem with what you call, not split family, skip families. Okay, skip family units are very prevalent in the Aboriginal community. They don't fit the regular non-Aboriginal family units, not two parents and two kids. Usually it's a lot of grandparents raising kids, a lot of somebody's missing, and there's a male, a female, because we have high suicide rates and death rates. And so the family units are usually constructed very differently as a result of that. And family and policies have to recognize those different, those variations of how people are structuring themselves for survival. They're trying to take care of one another. And they, in order to do that, the policies have to be more fluid in order to allow that it's a social, it's a cultural practice. It's what we do with one another. So, thank you. Any
And
other
too,
questions?
there's challenges too, Aileen, because we have federal housing funding and then we have provincial policy housing and funding. And often, those two aren't operating on the same understanding of the need or priority. And so then it becomes much more challenging at the local level to try and move forward with a strategy. When we talk about unifying strategy, I think we need to talk about all levels of government, including the nations, and Métis Nation included. We need to have those conversations and we need to build our strategy collectively through organizations like Urban Aboriginal Voices for Red Deer, the housing, the AVOHN domain, which is already structured for those conversations. It's already been built. We just need to plug in all of our funders.
I loved your report. It was very well written and it really dug into some really deep issues. One of the things that I found from my personal experience is I have a university education. I have a fairly spotty sometimes, but mostly good work history. But I have experienced homelessness. Is that something that you found was prevalent in the community, that people, that it didn't matter if you had an income level, that was always something that could happen?
Yeah, well, there's two sides to that, and I have seen numerous Aboriginal people that have gone through the educational system and just end up going back to the same work that they were doing prior to, because it's the only thing that's available, it's not what they wanted. On the other hand, we also see and know that the higher a level of education Aboriginal people are getting, the narrower the gap between non-Aboriginal people and Aboriginal people. So there is that factor as well that's happening. I think it depends on the geographical location and availability of options. And also, we have, as Aboriginal people, we have a tendency to not want to move away from home. And so, when I listen to my students, they're going through the educational thing because they want to go home and help. Everybody wants to go home and help. I don't hear that from non-Aboriginal people. I don't hear them talking about those kinds of ideologies or values or anything like that. They want that four cars and the vacations and all of that stuff. And so our people approach education for very different reasons and stuff. So yeah, homelessness happens. But I have actually met PhDs that are non-Aboriginal on streets too. So
I think it's important too to think about where our focus is around our community members as well. I think we do a good job, maybe even a great job, working with the homeless population. But I think we do a pitiful job when it comes to supporting low-income moms, single moms with kids, and that's nobody's fault. That's where the focus has been in terms of government funding. So I think it's time for government to look at women, to look at poverty, to look at Indigenous, what's happening across the nation, and particularly locally. You know, these women are already housing that population, and it's difficult. The wait lists are long, but all of our focus is on the most vulnerable. But moms, working moms with children are extremely vulnerable. Our young women are extremely vulnerable, whether they're living with one parent, two parents, grandma, or no parents. And we can only have to look at the numbers of murdered and missing Indigenous women and say, there is a problem. Because we'll also work for peanuts just to keep our kids fed. And And so we need to think differently and understand Indigenous population differently.
And just going back to the 10-year plan, one of the ideas that's in this report is the idea of urban reserves, okay? And that's happening in Saskatoon. They had a mandate to develop better relations in that city with the Aboriginal people, and as a result of that, started to engage with reserves that were outside, and they designated land as reserve territories inside the city. That would alleviate housing costs unbelievably if that was there. And then I also put in the idea of Métis people having a settlement inside, but then I instantly got told, maybe I was kind of overstepping my rights, and maybe the Métis people better be thinking about it. And they said, well, yeah, okay.
A Métis community
Yeah.
as opposed to settlement. Settlement is a political word. So community of Métis people, for sure. Because we are growing faster and faster.
Oh, yeah.
And for us to get a citizenship card is a minimum of, what is it now, Cecil, 6 to 8 months?
So 6 months, something like 3, depending on,
Depending
to get
on,
all your information.
Yeah, so, yeah, and again, that goes back to the idea. The other idea that's in this that was phenomenal, and would be very helpful, is the development of a rent bank, okay? Rent banks, it's like a chunk of money that's held, and somebody that's working poor, you know, and probably doesn't have any kind of a health plan in their job, and they end up, you know, just about losing their house. They can actually borrow the money from the rent bank to pay it back, to cover them during that period, and then they pay it back. And that's been operating out of Toronto and has saved a lot of people from becoming homeless. And doesn't cost anybody anything, you know, it's just, it was, I think it was first engaged by somebody in Toronto who just got a chunk of money from one of the corporations for this idea, and has helped unbelievably in order to stop that slide. The other thing that's really important, it was quite interesting actually to realize this concept, and that is you have subsidized houses, right? And everybody, according to the provincial government, can increase their rent a certain percentage, right? Including subsidized units. What happens is the units actually move from the low income, they move up the pay grades, and it will eventually be too high and unreachable by the people who the housing is for. And so it was quite actually phenomenal, finding all these various problems with subsidized housing and whatnot. So addressing that would be really important. The increases are usually for repairs. So if agencies or services could actually get those dollars instead of just trying to squeeze them out of the people, so that those units can stay available to the people that need them, would be important. Anyway, it was great doing the report.
and we so appreciate it. And I know we've run over time a little bit, but if there are no more questions, Jessica, would you like to bring us to a close?
Sure. My name is Jessica Daniels. I am the coordinator of the AVOHN project, and you may call me the AVOHN lady. Thank you so much for coming here today. It means a great deal to us that we had this level of engagement and participation and people who wanted to know about the work. It is a community development process, so it is about building relationships. And